point. Only Morton stared back defiantly, his lips tight. "The Quran, sir," Morton replied sharply. "Verse 8:12. Just one of the more than 100 verses that call Muslims to war with what they call non-believers." "And who do they call non-believers?" General Brooks asked. "Anyone who isn't Muslim," Reynolds interrupted. Quran 5:5:1 states that Muslims are not to take Jews and the Christians for friends. Allah describes them as unjust people. "The Quran invokes kill the infidel 120 times, General Brooks said quietly, almost to himself. He gazed at the empty sky. What kind of sane nation permits these people to practice such open hatred? "Sir," Morton said, "I thought we were here to discuss Firebird." General Thomas Brooks, U.S. Strategic Command, lowered his Remington shotgun and fired a warning blast of scattershot at Reynolds' foot. Reynolds' shins caught a few ricocheting pellets. Morton and Bullseye stiffened. Reynolds fell to one knee, but by sheer force of will he did not scream. After a moment, as the shock fled and pain struck, he hissed, then grit his teeth, then slammed both fists into the ground. Brooks didn't even look at him. Instead, he locked eyes with Morton. "We are planning to detonate a super weapon in Mecca, and you spend weeks screwing around with whores?" Thoughts shot through Morton's head like spears. "That was my fault, not—" "How do you know I'm finished?" Brooks seethed. Morton's lips clapped shut. It had been on the news, the pursuit, the shootout, but the incident had been scrubbed. There was nothing to tie it to them. The assassins had gone to ground. I'll stop right there on page 38 of my newly released novel, Countdown to Mecca. When I return, we'll go to the news, views, and reviews, and 2 more pages from one more chapter of this sterling novel, Countdown to Mecca. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUICOIN. We'll go from fiction to nonfiction. Man attacked by 50 black teens when he tried to break up fight in Baltimore. I'm sure it's not covered by the news outlets. It's a heartbreaking story. A white man, 61 years old, tried to break up a fight between 2 girls. And the gang of animals attacked him. They almost killed him. And the picture of the man's face after he was beaten was published in the Daily Mail. And I linked it on michaelsavage.com. And they charged a 17-year-old boy for his role in the beating, and they're looking for the other teens in Baltimore who beat him up. See, he went outside to ask 2 girls who were fighting on top of his truck to move along and continue the dispute elsewhere. The mob of black teens began to hit and beat Fletcher until he fell to the ground. But the attack of the thugs didn't end right there. No. After the beating, he was left on the ground with broken eye sockets, a broken nose, broken ribs, and a brain bleed. He also needed a blood transfusion. Antoine Lawson has been charged with attempted murder, and a 15-year-old girl was charged with assault. We haven't heard from the usual posse of supporters of the normal victims with regard to this brutal racial beating of this Good Samaritan. Joe Lamb, who owns a business in Baltimore in a nearby neighborhood, saw the attack and said he wasn't at all that surprised with what happened based on what's happened to the neighborhood. He said it's gotten out of hand now, gone too far. The kids walk on top of cars, kick dogs, let dogs out, throw trash, steal milk from school and throw it at houses, threaten neighbors with bodily harm. That's your America under Barack Hussein Obama, Eric Holder, and of course, the good Reverend Al Sharpton. Now on to the callers. The previous topic was, a poll says people are leaving churches in a large number, mainly millennials, and we don't mean leaving them after sermons, we mean just leaving the church. And Will on WABC, are you on here? Are you gone? Will is gone. All right, Will is gone. It happens in radio. WBAP in Dallas, Texas. Cliff, welcome. You're on the Savage Nation. What's your comment?
I just wanted to say I'm not personally religious because I don't have any faith in it. I don't believe the Bible.
I'm not here to convince you, but I'm asking you Were you born into a Christian family?
My grandma is a Christian, and she goes to church every Sunday, but my mother does not, and I was raised primarily by my mother.
Do you feel anything missing in your life?
No.
Okay, I'm just asking. Again, I'm not here to proselytize and tell you to go to church and your teeth will grow again, the ones that have fallen out, that you'll get a second set of baby teeth. But the thing is, you're how old? What age group?
I'm 30. I just turned 30 May 4th.
Well, it's so you've never felt the need for religion.
I've tried, but I just never got into it. I never felt...
Right. In other words, you go there and to you it's mumbo jumbo and ritual means nothing, right?
Pretty much.
So, let's say a tragedy strikes in your family. What would you say? Oh, my God, or oh, my fate? What would you say?
I've caught myself saying, oh, my God, just because of repetition for me hearing it so often, I think it's ingrained in my head.
Well, since we have an atheist president, if he's not Muslim, you could say, oh my Obama. Oh my Obama. You could pray to Obama, and maybe someone will help you.
I'm a libertarian.
I don't know who atheists pray to in times of need. I don't understand that. Who do they turn to in a hospital? I don't quite understand who they turn to in a moment of need. Let's say, God forbid, them or a mother. Do they turn and ask for God's help? Or who do they turn to? Karl Marx? They get out Das Kapital and put their hand on Das Kapital and pray to Karl Marx. Who do they pray to? No one, I guess. They just leave it to fate or the doctors, I suppose.
I'm agnostic, so I'm not...
How do you define yourself as agnostic? You believe in nothing?
It means that there's a possibility that there is something, but I'm not 100% saying...
So in other words, you're hedging your bet. I like that. You're hedging your bet that if there is a God, you'll tell him you always loved him. And if there is no God, well, what'd you lose? You didn't pray to somebody who didn't exist. I don't think you're alone, and I'm not here to mock your agnosticism nor to sell you on religion. I'm just interested, just asking, because it's a growing trend, no question about it. Free copy of Countdown to Mecca to That Young Agnostic.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
So we're talking about religion, and they say that the number of Christians is diminishing in America. The number of Muslims are increasing. Of course, in Obama, he's bringing them in by the plane load. So I ask myself, okay, younger whites are not going to church. That's a given, the millennials, so to speak. I don't know what the age bracket is for millennial. Robert, are you still a millennial? Yeah. No, you're not. You're older? You're older than a millennial? When does a millennial end? 27? 27. So millennials don't believe in God. I wonder if young Muslim millennials in America are eschewing their faith. I really wonder. I don't know. I don't know if polls can find out those things, nor if these youngsters in the Muslim faith would cop to it. I just don't know. I used a phrase that's kind of antiquated. Cop to it's very interesting in this age of anti-police rhetoric. Dem senator accuses Obama of sexism toward Elizabeth Warren. You talk about the insanity of the left. Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown. I don't know what Sherrod Brown is. What is a Sherrod Brown? Is that a flavor of ice cream? Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown accuses President Obama of sexism in his attacks on Senator Elizabeth Warren, also a Dem. He said in a tweet, reporters, I think the president was disrespectful to her by the way he did that. Made this more personal. I think referring to her as her first name when he might have not have done that for a male senator. Perhaps I've said enough. What in the world is a Sherrod Brown? Some kind of ice cream cone, or what is this? See, the president said, we have the soundbite, don't we? The president said that she's a politician like all others, Robert. I know we have it. I want to ask you, don't call me on it. It's not sexist. It's that she's against this trade bill. And play it. Just play it. Let's listen and see what it sounds like.
The truth of the matter is that, Elizabeth is, a politician like everybody else. And, she's got a voice that she wants to get out there. I understand that, and on most issues, she and I deeply agree. On this one, though, her arguments don't stand the test of fact and scrutiny.
What's wrong with that? He didn't say anything sexist. He called her Elizabeth because she's a friend of his. So this Sherrod Brown ice cream flavor, also a senator, I don't know the difference. They both melt in the face of any heat. Sherrod Brown accused Obama of sexism toward Elizabeth Warren. Oh, my God. So we're talking about that, my new novel, Countdown to Mecca. Let me read you the last 2 pages for today. Remember what I'm going to do for you, because most of you won't buy the book, and my job is to entertain you on radio. Remember, that's not to sell you a book. The book is ancillary. I got my set and frame correct. So in the last iteration, chapter 5, Jack, you read from Jack, right? Now we're going to go to 6. Oh, no, I don't want to go to 6. How about the cops in the squad room? No, don't want to read that one. How about life in the safe house with the hookers? No, that's too risque for radio. No. How about, we'll jump chapters now and Countdown to Mecca. 30,000 feet over America heading west. It's not badly written. No, I don't want to read that one on the radio. I have to pick the right one for you. Maybe Back in San Francisco? I want to go to a restaurant with them. I have a lot of scenes set in North Beach and restaurants. I don't know where I put them in this book. In the other books, they were more prominent. How about Livermore, California? The Lawrence Livermore National Lab is in my novel. How do I know all these things? How do I have the ability to describe advanced aircraft, advanced weapons, generals, what West Point looks like, Mossad? How do I have the ability to create Mossad agents and talk about stations in Israel? How do I know all of these things? How did I figure it out? How do I create a Jewish gangster who doesn't exist? How do I create a Jack Hatfield? Where do these things come from? My imagination, that's where. And that's what a novel is supposed to be. It's supposed to be novel, new. What does novel mean? Interesting, new. That's all it means. Say, oh, that's a novel idea, right? That's what it means. So it's a story. So I don't know these people. I don't know any Jewish gangsters. And I could make a joke, but no, I don't know any Jewish gangsters. I don't know any generals. I don't know any hookers. I don't know any disgraced journalists. I don't know any clowns who had been in motorcycle accidents. But I invent them. I remember when I was younger, I used to think about Shakespeare's many characters. Like in one play, he'd have the fool, he'd have the king, he'd have the daughter, he'd have the. I said, how could he come up with all these characters? How do they exist in his mind? Without him getting lost and not knowing who he is. I know it was a problem for me when I was young, when I didn't have presence of mind. It's very hard when you're forming your personality and you're growing up to understand that you can have all of these characters visualized in your own head without losing yourself. Do you understand that? Now, I never had this discussion ever in the world with anyone or on radio. And I've thought about actors, why they're so, I want to use the exact word I'm looking for, why actors are so shallow. You take a guy like Sean Penn, you know he's a shallow, empty soul. You can look at him and know he's a fraud. You know he doesn't know himself from his characters. You know he can't differentiate the real Sean Penn from the phonies he plays, the fake tough guys. And it's the same with many of the people in the media. They get lost in their characterizations on screen with who they are, which is why so many of them are on drugs and alcohol. Why they go into rehab, they don't know who they are. They're very good at what they do. I love acting. I love movies, as you know. I watch movies very frequently. I admire it enormously, but I don't look to them for political ideas or any leadership. Most of them are empty heads who couldn't go to a regular college, so they went into acting. Not all of them, but most of them in America are not well educated. They don't even know the world around them, which is not true, by the way, in all countries. But nevertheless, in our country, most of them are empty and shallow, just as you would expect. But the point I'm making is that most actors lose themselves in their role in real life, and they start acting out one of the roles they played or they portray in movies in real life, and they don't know who they are. And they get frightened when confronted with the question of who they are. I don't suffer from that. I did when I was young. Don't get me wrong. There was a time in my life when I was younger when it was very hard to know who I am. That's a great question. Who am I? Did you ever ask yourself that question? That's a nice question for a rainy afternoon. But as a great philosopher wrote, I